And Manning guns in, and it is the waiting touchdown. Demaryius Thomas.
Still very physical. A big hit there as Orton on 2nd and 10 going for the deep ball, and it is caught. Touchdown, Sammy Watkins.
Is the running back. Play action. And Manning's going to heave one. There's a flag. Beckham, one-handed catch. How in the world?
Oh, my goodness.
And Brandon Carr was back there. I mean, he is.
All right, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to the first episode of 2015 of The Fantasy Life. For those who don't know me, I'm the Big AC Andy Chevalier, as you can see right there. First week back, riding solo this year. It's just going to be me for now. We might be adding some people here or there. We're not quite sure about yet. But got a lot of feedback, a lot of positive feedback actually about the show. So I just wanted to do a couple of things preseason, see how it sped up, and then maybe we'll do some stuff after that. First things first, we're going to do two things this year. For those who don't know anything about me, my name is the Big AC Andy Chevalier. Three things I love in life. I love poker. I love professional wrestling, and I love fantasy football, and that's what we're going to be talking about each and every week here. Going to do some preseason stuff. One thing that we are going to do a little bit more differently this year compared to previous year shows is we're going to focus a lot more on daily fantasy, particularly DraftKings. I know there's a bunch out there, FanDuel, DraftKings. We're going to concentrate primarily on DraftKings. I'm going to do this challenge. I'm going to try to run roughly around $200, try to see if I can get it up to $800, maybe even $1,000. So every year every week I'm going to put my balance up, show you the lineups I'm rolling in, and we're going to see what we can do. I'm going to do two challenges every week. I'm going to do a 50-50 league, which is basically half the entries double their money. And I'm going to do a lottery league, which is basically the Millionaire Maker that we'll be doing every week. I believe it's a $30 entry fee for that. So as you can see here, I'm going to post my balance account. We're at $230 right now. We're going to see if we can get that up to $800. That is the goal. I think it's a really realistic goal. Going to try to only gamble about 25% of my roll each week or less. That is what we're hoping for here. So again, I'm going to be riding solo this week. I'm going to be talking about right in this particular video, preseason draft tips. Only about preseason draft tips. I'm not talking about any rankings here. Just 6 things I wanted to talk about in your preseason draft preparation. A lot of people put a lot of time and effort into it, trying to get the best possible lineup they can. And this is how you need to do it, in my personal opinion. Number 1 on my preseason draft tip is know your league settings. Know your roster spots. Know how many you need to fill, and know your scoring settings. Each and every league is very, very different. Know how many points quarterbacks get for throwing touchdowns. Know how many points your team defenses get. Some leagues have heavy scoring and defensive scoring, so you need to know exactly what your roster spots are, your scoring settings are, and adjust accordingly and draft according to that. You are the only one at fault if you do not know your settings. Number 2 on my tips list, create your own rankings. I think this is really important. And more importantly, stick to your own rankings. I think you should follow your own rankings. Do not care about what other people may think. Take a couple hours before your draft, probably longer. Set your own rankings. What do you agree? What don't you agree with? And draft based according to that. So always show up with your own draft ranking sheet for each position. Number 3 on my tips list, know what other people are looking at in regards to rankings. When you show up to a draft, a lot of times, if it's a live draft, the commissioner will print out a ranking list, a generic ranking list off of whatever website they choose. If it's online, it's usually even easier because it's right there in front of everyone. Whether you agree with it or not, and I hope usually they're really wrong, so don't just follow that only. Bring your own. But know what everyone else is looking at. And the reason why that is, for example, say you're drafting in the 10th spot. okay, and there's certain players you're looking for, and you're on the way back. You just drafted at the end of your odd round. Like, let's just argument's sake say the 5th round that you drafted a guy, and you're between these two guys, and one's ranked significantly lower. You know you can get the one ranked a little bit higher based on how the other people are drafting. If they're following the web-based rankings, the generic sheet that everyone has printed out for them, or it's listed in front of them, you know you can wait on a certain guy later on if you want. So again, just know what other people are looking at. It could really help you draft-wise. Another thing that really helps a lot, number 4 on my tips list, is keep track of what other teams have drafted and what they need. This seems really, really obvious, but usually it gets kind of lost after rounds 4 and 5. Online, it's pretty easy, in my opinion, to keep track because you just click on a team, boom, oh, he has his quarterback, he doesn't have a tight end, blah, blah, blah. You just go all the way down. But live, it gets a little tricky because especially if there's trades, it's not simply easy just looking at a draft board and seeing what's there. Just keep track of your own, even if it's just creating an Excel sheet and you have a quarterback column. You have a running back column. You have a wide receiver column and a tight end column. And you just simply put a tally every time they draft a position. You don't need to put who they draft. Just put what position they drafted. Because frankly, you don't really care who they drafted. You just want to know the position. And again, this is where it would come in handy. Say, again, we're going to use the 10th spot example. You don't have a quarterback yet in your draft. You're drafting, let's say, in this argument's sake, you're in the 7th round, and you need a quarterback. A couple of the big ones already went, and you're like, okay, I need to get my quarterback because I won't get a good one on the way back. Say there's one in particular you really like. Should you draft him right then and there? Well, it depends. If the 11th and 12th teams have already drafted their quarterback, you can just wait because they're most likely not going to draft a backup quarterback in the 7th round. They're probably not going to do that. So you can wait literally 4 picks before it's you. You know, the 11th, the 12th goes again, the 11th, and then back to you. That's when you get your quarterback right there. So that's just an example of why it really comes in handy to keep track of what other people draft and what other people need. Number 5 on my tips list is try to have a balanced roster. In 16-round leagues, I personally always aim to have at least 5 running backs and at least 5 receivers, usually a little more, especially in the running back department. The reason being is your big point positions, how you win leagues, is not your backup quarterback, is not your backup tight end usually. It's that handcuff running back that becomes a starter. It's that deep wide receiver that becomes a lot bigger than what you thought it was going to be. Load up on running backs and receivers. You don't need a backup tight end. You definitely don't need a backup defense. Forget about a backup kicker. You don't need backups in any of those positions. You just need one tight end, one defense, one kicker. I wouldn't even draft usually a backup quarterback. Instead, I would be loading up on running backs and receivers and just, again, try to have a balanced roster in that regards. You can always find a backup quarterback, a defense, what have you, in the waiver pool. So it's not necessarily something you need a backup for. You can always get that in the waiver. Number 6 on my list, the very last one. This is, every site says this, everyone will tell you this, is your last 2 picks of the draft should be your kicker and your defense. However, one thing I do disagree with is a lot of people do their defense and then their kicker. I disagree with this, and I'll tell you why. I think your kicker should be drafted before your defense, especially if everyone has the mindset of defense first, then kicker. The reason being, in my opinion, is you start a kicker every single week, right? The same kicker. Whoever you draft week 1 for a majority of teams is going to be your kicker for the next 10, 11 weeks until they're bye or whatnot. The defense, that's more or less something you're going to stream every week. Unless you draft one of the big defenses like Seattle or Houston, if it's any other defense like that, you're probably going to drop them in the waiver pool, bench them, whatnot, for weeks, say they're playing like Green Bay or they're facing Denver or another offensive great team. So I'd recommend getting a better kicker, meaning kicker that you projected more to get more offensive production. Kickers like Justin Tucker, Stephen Hoshka from Seattle, Connor Barth from Denver. Kickers like that. That's what I aim for in your second to last round, and then your last round going for that defense. 3 defenses for week 1, just to throw it out there, that I love are the Dolphins, the Cincinnati Bengals, and the Carolina Panthers. They have 3 very favorable matchups. Dolphins in particular have 6 great matchups in a row, so I'm trying to target Dolphins defense in pretty much all of my drafts. They have 6 great matchups in a row, so that's a defense I don't even have to worry about. Boom, they're going to be there for the first 6 weeks. All right, that's going to wrap it up for my preseason show. Next episode, I'm going to be going over some quarterbacks and some running backs that I've been targeting this year, some that I have ranked a little bit higher than others, some quarterbacks and running backs that I think are a little overhyped and a little overrated in my mind. So we'll be talking about that. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the box below, the comments box. And post this right on Facebook as well, so you can post that right in the comments box there. Any questions at all? Would love to answer them, and that's why I have this show, is to answer your questions. Any questions about trades, draft picks, keeper questions I love, anything about fantasy football, I'm here to help. If it has anything with rankings, anything whatnot, let me know. Put them in the box below. Until then, make sure you like, if you could, please like my video, share my video, add me on favorites on YouTube if you could. And like I said, I'll try my hardest to answer your questions. Next episode, I'll address as many as I can. Until then, folks, thank you for watching the first episode of The Fantasy Life. Glad to be back. It's been a long off season, but we're finally here. It's going to be great. Until then, folks, see you next time, and good luck on the fantasy